Hey everyone, I am Rachel. I am the owner and chief care package maker at Countdowns and Cupcakes, where we're all about staying connected, even when you're separated because of duty and distance. And I am so excited to have someone joining me who is quite a distance away. But I'm so happy to have Noralee Jones, Mrs. Navy Mama, joining me because she and I are going to chat about kind of a unique care package situation. So Noralee, I don't want to steal your thunder and tell your whole background, even though I'm very excited to have you on. So why don't you go ahead and
Thanks.
introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about your business and what you do.
Thank you. Welcome. This is my carfus. This is my car office where I conduct a lot of my work, partly because I am a mom of four under the age of 6. So there's not a lot of quiet time.
Holy cow.
But I also work remotely. So I am in my car a lot. So I'm the owner and influencer with Mrs. Navy Mama. I started my blog a couple of years ago. Really focusing on military spouses and the challenges that we go through as military spouses, and to really give that support out. So my biggest passion is self-care and our relationships with our military significant others, and care packages is one of those big ways.
Yeah.
Yeah, I currently we are stationed in Washington State. My husband is on a submarine, and this is our 3rd ship and our 4th duty station. So
Wow.
yeah, in 7 years. So
Ooh,
it's been,
oh my goodness.
yes,
Oh my gosh.
lots of changes over the last few years. So
Yeah, definitely. I think that's something that's so common in military spouse life, right? Just like constant changes. That's like all we know.
And I mean, the truth of the matter is if you're not happy with where you are, just wait, because
Right.
I'm sure in a couple of years
Things
are going to
completely
change.
different.
You'll be
Yes.
somewhere else. So,
Exactly.
so.
One of the things that bonded Noralee and I pretty quickly is that we're both Navy wives. Both of our husbands are sailors, and even though they serve in the same branch, their life is very, very different. I quickly learned because, like you mentioned, your husband is on a submarine, which while it's still part of the Navy, I feel like it's so different than so many sailors' experiences. And that's why I wanted to have you on, was to kind of talk through what that's like in terms of care packages specifically, right? Because that's kind of where I focus my energy. But just because I don't think very many people recognize or even know that group of people is out there.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting that the submarine, they're called the silent service for a reason, because they do kind of just stay silent. There's not a lot of publicity about our submarines. There's not these big homecomings where everyone waits on the piers, because the submarine's job is to be more stealth-like, to be able to look for trouble and to keep our water safe in that way. Instead of responding, they are more the people who report and react in that way. So the biggest thing I found, though, was how we manage deployments and expectations for deployments. So.
Yeah. Just talking with you the couple of times that we've spoken, off camera and everything, I've definitely learned a lot about the submariner deployment lifestyle. And it's unique. And I think that while it's very specific to a submariner, it's certainly something that can help people who are putting together care packages in other unique situations, right?
Yeah.
So one of the things that I kind of wanted to go through is to kind of talk through any of those things that you've had to adjust your care package style towards. I know a lot of folks who are in the Navy spend some time on a ship, right? And space is not a lot, but I would imagine on a submarine that
it's a lot smaller. It's a lot smaller. Yes. That's one of the biggest things. So one of the biggest adjustments when it came to care packages is the amount of space, which also means the amount of care packages that you can do. The second thing, and I'm going to get into all of that, but the second thing was also how often you get to do it. Similar, when my husband was on surface ships, I was able to send a care package once a month, once a couple of weeks, whenever I kind of got the urge. And they were small, but I was able to send them more frequently because there was a physical address. There is not for a submarine.
I legit had not even thought of that. That is.
Yeah, there's not really a physical address. They have what are called mail drops, which is where you provide everything to the squadron or crew that's on the surface, and then they find a way to helicopter it for a mail drop. So the submarine comes up to the surface and they drop the mail drop into the sub, and the sub goes back down. It's legit. Like I remember thinking about it and thinking like, for reals? But it's legitimate. Like they call them mail drops because a lot of times submarines don't necessarily get to go into port, and those who do get into port, again, it's hush hush, super secret, so you don't really have an opportunity to do this. So they do mail drops. You have one opportunity for a care package, and you have to send it before they leave.
Whoa,
so that was the biggest difference.
Like mind blown. Like I'm gonna need a moment to process that.
Yes. So I sent with my husband one care package. It's usually in a medium to large flat rate box.
Okay.
And that's it. That's the only thing I get. He gets it before he leaves, and he takes it with him. That's it. And they call them halfway boxes, and they usually the crew will usually have some sort of a party or get together to celebrate halfway through the deployment, and they get to open up their halfway boxes. Yeah, so they get one opportunity, and then depending on the length of the deployment or the crew or what their agenda is, you might get a mail drop, you might not get a mail drop, you might get two mail drops, but you might only get 12 hours notice of the mail drops, etc., etc.
Wow. Wow.
Way different than the surface ships.
That is so, like, I think, the submarine group is probably the only group that can relate to that very particular situation. But I think it brings up some good points, even if you can send care packages more often, right? A lot of our loved ones are in situations where they're limited on space. They're limited on like refrigeration or microwaves or whatever it might be. So they have limited resources while they're overseas. So keeping your loved one's situation in mind is so important when you're putting together a care package. I don't care.
I didn't know this when we first started submarines. I just figured like, oh, I'll get the care package stuff later. My husband's like, oh, no, we don't have access to this. We don't have this. You have to only have one. And I was like, oh, like, what? And being aware of, like you said, are your individual service members' abilities and needs and situation is going to go a long way with you preparing for any sort of care package. And you also have to think, if I only get one care package, what is the most important things that I want to put in this care package? Do I really just want to put a bunch of random stuff in there, or do I want to make this care package really shine and make their day,
Yeah, that's kind of where that's where my head was going, right? Like if I had one shot, like that is gonna be the best box I've ever done in my whole life. So what are some of the things that, I mean, obviously there's probably some care package staples that go in, right? Some snacks and items like that. But are there specific things that you have found that sending in that particular situation are really beneficial, or have there been things that you were like, oh, this was not a good idea after all?
Yeah. So one of the biggest tips for at least submarines or just actually any Navy ship in general is the first time I sent a care package, I did not laminate pictures. Big mistake. Ooh. I highly suggest laminating any of pictures that you send. So don't worry about printing them on fancy photo paper. Just print them on regular paper and laminate them. And if you really need, I mean, a laminator is like $30 at Walmart. And you can use it forever. But I would highly recommend laminating pictures and also putting things in Ziploc bags. You never know if that box is going to get wet, if it's going to get soaked, if things are going to flood. You don't know because they're out in the middle of the ocean. So
that is such a good idea.
That's one like different thing that you need to keep in mind is like, what is their travel situation? What is their, like living situation? Is there a possibility that something could get ruined because of XYZ?
I love the idea of laminating photos, certainly on a ship, but even if you're not, like even if your loved one is a land deployment, like laminating that photo so that, right, it's going to get touched and loved and hung up and maybe taken down, right? And so
wrinkled and such.
And I would even say do it with little kid artwork too. if you're sending like Father's Day cards, or if you're sending
Yep.
some sort of like drawing that a child has done, like go ahead and laminate that too. So
Yep.
that way they have it and it doesn't get ruined.
Yeah.
I love that idea. I'm totally
I
stealing
also really like to make copies of letters ahead of time and tuck those copies away, because again, you don't know if they're going to open it and then something happens to that letter or it gets destroyed, and you don't necessarily want to laminate a letter.
Right.
But go ahead and just make a digital copy of it or a photocopy of it and tuck that away somewhere, so that way if it gets lost, you still have the ability to give that back to them and then they can kind of relive that moment. So you might want to think ahead, especially since you have one shot, of any anniversaries, birthdays, holidays, etc. that might be in there, and kind of gear towards that. So if they're going to miss Easter, maybe throw in some Cadbury eggs, if they're as long as the chocolate doesn't melt. For a submarine, I don't have to worry about that. So I throw in Cadbury eggs, you know. If we're going to miss their anniversary, then throw in one of your wedding photos with a really sweet note about how much you love them and how much you're celebrating with them, etc. So like think about that. I got this from you, from reading your tips. I also love wrapping each individual thing.
Good. Yes.
Too. It brings like a nice little element of surprise. Like, let's say I have an anniversary, a birthday, and Easter, like all rolled into one care package because I know he's going to be gone for X amount of time. Then I might do like a generic wrapping paper for the Easter thing with a little bunny on it. I might do like a birthday wrapping paper for the birthday. I might do an I love you wrapping paper for the Valentine's Day or the anniversary. And then he has it all in one box. So
I love that idea. If your husband's anything like mine, he won't wait to open those items. Like,
but at least he knows what they are. But at least he knows what they are, you know. And I always also write on there like, wait until after this date. And if he doesn't listen to me, that's not my fault. But
exactly. You made the effort. No, I really like that idea. And I think that could be a really good cost saving tip, whether or not it's a submarine, right? So like if you are looking, especially at the holidays, there are so many holidays that we should send care packages for. You don't have to.
I know,
but,
and there's like 7 between September and March. I mean, what the heck?
So maybe you combine a couple, send like a Christmas box if that's kind of your thing, but put in something little for New Year's and indicate that it's for New Year's, right? So take that tip with Noralee's one box of deployment and figure out how you can add that and incorporate that in a way that helps you save time and money on your care packages. I love that tip. That's a really good one. One of the things that I did for my husband, because like he would go to places that it would take forever to get an address and like all that kind of stuff. I always like to send like a little tiny notebook. It was usually like the size of my hand that had some like notes already written in it that he could slip in a pocket or in his backpack. And then he could read them before he got a care package and hang on to. So that might be a good idea for other people in a similar situation.
Yeah, I always, I send the box with my husband, but I always send him one quart-size Ziploc bag that has pictures already in it, that has little open when cards in it, things like that. So that way he has them and he can put them around his computer or whatever he has in the ship.
Thank you so much.
You're
welcome. Was so incredibly
welcome.
helpful. So I want to make sure that everyone can find you because you have like everything that Noralee just said, like it's just like the tip of the iceberg with her. She has so many great ideas, so many great resources. I'm a huge fan of her self-care book that she has put together. Like I've brought it out during this like crazy time in the world. And I actually went through some of the pages the other day because like I need some self-care for myself right now. Yes. So go ahead and tell everyone where they can find you. And when I post the video, I'll make sure I include all the links so that they can get to all of your good stuff.
Thanks. Yes. So you can find me on mrsnavymama.com. That's the website and the blog. You have access to a bunch of free resources, including inspirational quotes. And there's a 4-week self-care email challenge that gets sent out all free. But you can also find my 2 books on there. Newbie's Guide for Military Spouses. That's with me and Julia from Soldier's Wife Crazy Life. And then I also have my self-care guide for military spouses, which really breaks down the importance of self-care. Mrs. Navy Mama is spelled MRSNAVYMAMA.
Thank you guys so much for tuning in. And in the meantime, happy care packaging. Bye, y'all.